So thank you very much for joining us on this webinar between ourselves here at WP Elevation and our very good friends at GoDaddy. GoDaddy, thank you very much for inviting us on to this call. We're very excited about this. In case you've missed it and you're not sure why you're here, this is a training webinar where we are going to help you generate leads and win clients for your web consulting business. And yes, we are making an assumption that you guys are predominantly web consultants and are building websites for clients. Now, in this webinar, we're going to give you our turnkey system that you can deploy immediately. And when I say immediately, I mean immediately. You can, unless you're Mike and it's 11 o'clock and you want to get some sleep after this call, you can literally start doing this stuff this afternoon or tomorrow morning. And we're going to talk a little bit about some of the challenges with lead gen and winning clients, and hopefully give you some insights into how you can overcome those challenges. But this is a very practical, tactical webinar. Yeah. Hopefully by now you have all received your workbook that accompanies this webinar, and hopefully you've printed it out and you're ready to take some handwritten notes. All right, so let's just go through very quickly the agenda for this call. We're going to do our welcome, which is kind of what we're doing now. Then we're going to get stuck straight into the training. Then at the end of the training, we are going to have some live Q&A where you'll be able to pop your hand up in the control panel, in the Zoom control panel, and get on the line and have a chat with us, or you can ask some questions in the Q&A box. But we are going to leave the Q&A towards the end, because chances are you've got a question you want to ask now, and we probably will deal with it during the training. And then we're going to talk about next steps, which really is just to download the worksheet and get moving. So welcome to this training webinar. Thank you for giving us some of your time and investing some of your time to help grow your business. A couple of things. You will get the most out of this webinar if you do this one thing, which is turn off all distractions. Please close Facebook, turn off Twitter, put your mobile phone upside down so you can't see the notifications, and please shut your email and minimize Slack so you can't see any notifications coming through. And I wasn't saying that 12 months ago on webinars, but Slack is a new thing. Yeah. If you do this one thing, which is take some handwritten notes during this webinar, and send a tweet, take a photo of your handwritten notes at the end of this webinar and send a tweet out to @WP Elevation. And just the very act of writing handwritten notes helps you learn. And the very act of promising to take a photo and tweet it out at the end of the call means that hopefully you will make your handwritten notes legible so that you can read them later and that they make sense. All right, so hopefully you're all ready to take some handwritten notes and play along. And just a little warning, there are some cheesy stock images ahead, but there aren't too many. I've only included a couple. All right, so for those that don't know, we are your hosts. My name is Troy Dean. I'm founder of WP Elevation, which is a business coaching program for WordPress consultants, and also the founder of Video User Manuals, which is a video tutorial plugin for WordPress. Mike Killen, who are you and what are you doing here?
Hey, mate. Well, at 11 o'clock, I might ask myself the same question. Hey, guys, I'm Mike Killen. I'm one of the coaches at WP Elevation. I also run my own business at Sell Your Service, but predominantly with WP Elevation. One of the coaches based in the UK, kind of Europe time zone. And I focus on, lead generation, marketing funnels, the kind of stuff that WordPress tends to power,
Awesome. And big shout out, Mike and I have worked very hard on this webinar, and I just want to give some props to Mike for helping me bring this webinar and this content together, and putting in a lot of effort to sort of help us do the thinking around this, because the reality is that sales can be really awkward and can be really sticky, and a lot of people can feel a little bit icky about doing sales because you can kind of come off as sort of, feeling a bit desperate. I don't know about you, Mike, but I've definitely had times in the past where, I've just felt a little bit desperate, a little bit dirty at the end of a sales call. Yeah. And so here's the big kind of distinction that we're going to make in today's call, which should last about 60 minutes. Our aim is to kind of try and get you out of here within the hour. Mm-hmm. Depending, of course, on how long Q&A goes for. But the big distinction that we want to make today is the difference between cold calling and warm calling, right? I don't like cold calling. Some people absolutely crush cold calling and are really good at it. I am far too fragile and have far too a sensitive ego to handle the constant rejection. So I don't like cold calling. I like warm calling, and we're going to explain what the difference is between cold calling and warm calling. And the other big distinction mindset really that I want to kind of deal with right now is our first cheesy stock image, which just eluded me. Here we go. The number one question that I get, and that I know Mike gets as well, and we have a survey funnel connected to Slack, and we get survey responses into a Slack channel every single day from people signing up at WP Elevation. And we ask them a question: what is the biggest problem you've got right now in your business? And the overwhelming, and I've had this conversation around the world at WordCamps and WordPress meetups over the last 4 or 5 years. And the number one answer we get to that question is, where are the clients? Where do I find new clients?
Yeah.
And for me, it's a mindset thing, is that the people believe there's kind of this myth that clients are hiding from you and you have to go and find them. And the reality is clients are not hiding from you at all. There are clients everywhere. They're just waiting to be served. In fact, if you reach out to any business owner that you know and ask them who their best relationship is with a professional service provider, in other words, in business, we've all got professional service providers. We've got web designers, we've got accountants, we've got lawyers, we've got other people that service the business. If you ask them who their best relationship is with those service providers, I doubt very much that anyone is going to say that they've got a great relationship with their web designer. Yeah. Very few business owners feel like they have a great relationship with their web designer. They're waiting for their web designer to blow them away. So clients are not hiding from you. They're just waiting to be served. And our job is to find out who we serve the best and serve them better than anyone else. And that's what we're going to talk about in today's webinar. And the other thing I just quickly want to mention here is the law of attraction. That the law of attraction is a thing. It's a little bit woo-woo if you're kind of into that stuff. And I know a lot of people might be a bit skeptical about it, but the law of attraction basically says that you attract into your world the energy that you put out into the universe. And it's kind of like, another cheesy stock image here. It's kind of like magnetically charged ions and particles that are attracted, and they're either attracted to each other or they are repelled from each other. And what you do in your business and the way that you communicate to the marketplace should attract the right type of client and repel the type of client that you don't want. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. All right, so let's get into this. We're just going to dive straight in. Here is the turnkey system that we know works for generating leads and attracting clients and converting those leads into clients. And the first part of this turnkey system is going to require you to do some work on yourself before we actually can, start seeing some results. So just bear with us, roll up your sleeves and get ready to do some work. Your sweet spot. Now, this is something that's been around for a long time. In fact, I've been talking about sweet spot for a while. And when I interviewed Guy Kawasaki on our podcast, sorry to name drop, but he was a great guest on the podcast. Very funny guy, super funny guy, very charismatic. Yeah. And of course, for those of you that don't know, he used to be the ex-chief evangelist at Apple during Steve Jobs' glory days. And anyway, I said to Guy Kawasaki, I said, how do you differentiate yourself as a consultant? And he said, well, you've got to know your sweet spot. And that was extremely validating for me because I'd been talking about your sweet spot for a long time and I hadn't prepped Guy on it. I just asked him the question and he said, you've got to know your sweet spot. And I said, well, explain to me what your sweet spot is because I have an understanding of what it is. And his definition was exactly the same. And I didn't make this up. I'm sure this stuff's been around for years. That your sweet spot is where you do your best work. And the very practical way to work out your sweet spot is to ask yourself, what are you really good at? Doesn't matter whether you enjoy it or not. What are you really good at? And what are you really passionate about? So the distinction here is your skill set might be things that you're really good at. It doesn't matter whether or not you enjoy it. And your passion is stuff that you really enjoy. It doesn't matter whether or not you're good at it. And let me give you an example. I love design, but I'm terrible at it. It's true. You don't want me designing the invitations to your birthday party because no one will turn up. No. But I love design. I love looking at WordPress themes. I love looking at Dribble. I love looking at design resources on the internet. I absolutely get off on beautiful design and typography, but I'm really terrible at it. So guess what? I don't design websites for clients. I don't design anything in our business because it's not my sweet spot. I'm really good at SEO, but I don't particularly like it. I find it a little bit boring. I used to enjoy it, but I just don't enjoy it these days anymore. So I don't do SEO. What I really enjoy doing and what I'm really good at is presenting and public speaking and hosting a podcast and communicating and educating our clients. So that's what I do. That's my sweet spot. That's where I spend my time in marketing and relationship building. And I'm sure, we've all had times in our business where we're doing something and we're getting results, but we're not really having a lot of fun. And then I'm sure we've had times where we're, having a lot of fun, but we're not getting any results. Well, your job is to work out where your skills and your passions intersect. So really simply, you should have received a worksheet by now before this webinar. If not, you will get it after this webinar. And the first page of that worksheet looks something like this. It is a very simple page with 2 columns, skills and passion. And your job is to write down all of your skills, just to brainstorm all of the skills that you have in the left-hand column. Doesn't matter whether or not you enjoy it. You might be great at building custom themes. You might be great at writing plugins. You might be great at, designing interfaces. You might be great at doing lead gen or SEO or social media. It doesn't matter whether or not you enjoy it. You just list in the left-hand side everything that you are good at and fill the page. Be honest with yourself and don't be too harsh on yourself. If you are good at something, write it down in that left-hand column. And then in the right-hand column, you simply write down everything you enjoy in your business. What is it that you really love doing? I hate project management and I'm not very good at it. So it's definitely not my sweet spot, right? So I wouldn't write it down in the passion column. So just write down everything that you're passionate about in the right-hand column. And then you'll see where the intersection is. There will be things in, I know Mike loves email marketing and he's really good at it. So I imagine, Mike, if you went through this exercise, email marketing would end up in the skills column and it would also end up in the passion column.
Yeah. And what's surprising as well, particularly about this exercise, is how quickly you see things that overlap, because we're constantly I think a lot of people constantly talk about, they go, well, what makes my business different? What is it that's, that's good? What can I put towards clients? And by kind of separating out these two things, because you have to be passionate about the stuff you're going to be delivering, because that's what gets you up at, 5, 6, 7 in the morning. But at the same time, if you're not good at it and you can't deliver it, then, you have to be realistic with yourself. But I actually believe that there's a huge amount of people out there who are fantastic at design and who are genuinely great at marketing and development, but for whatever reason, they don't think they are. But by doing it like this, if you're passionate at it and you have got it as a skill set, that to me is an indicator you need to go after it,
Yeah. And I think the challenge with this exercise is a lot of people put things in the skills column that they think they're good at because they're passionate about it.
Yeah.
So it's a tricky exercise, but you've got to be really honest with yourself and be brutal. And it might seem like a grade school exercise and you might think, well, what the hell has this got to do with generating leads and winning clients? But I promise you, it's all going to make sense very, very soon. It all makes sense very soon. So very simple exercise, skills in the left column, passions in the right column. And I'm going to use an example for this webinar, which is kind of example close to home for Mike and I, because we are both very passionate about a thing called conversion rate optimization, and we're both kind of good at it. Yeah. So conversion rate optimization is really optimizing the user experience on a website to maximize conversions for the website owner. So whether that's an e-commerce store or whether it's lead gen or whether it's donations to a charity, whatever it is, whatever the conversion is, optimizing the user experience to maximize the conversion rate for the website owner. And that is really one of my sweet spots and certainly Mike's sweet spot. Yeah. So using that example, step number 2, and you will come up with your own example. I'm also really good at lead gen for nonprofits. I love helping nonprofits build their database of donors. So whatever your example is, just keep that in mind. So then step number 2 is you're going to ask yourself, okay, if I'm going to spend my time in my sweet spot, and let's say my sweet spot is conversion rate optimization, then I have to ask myself, well, who cares about conversion rate optimization? And I don't mean that to say, who cares? I literally mean who actually cares about conversion rate optimization. Someone who has a brochure website with no call to action and no lead gen forms probably doesn't care about conversion rate optimization because they're not even aware of conversion rates, right? So you have to ask yourself, how does my sweet spot benefit other people? Yeah. Because the reality is that nobody really cares about how good you are at something until they understand how that skill set is going to benefit their business. Everyone just wants to know what's in it for them. You know, it's a classic marketing cliche. The world's
Mm-hmm.
most famous radio station is WIIFM. What's in it for me, right? So people just care about what's in it for them. So that's why you guys are on this webinar, because you're sitting here going, all right, but what's in it for me? How do I get leads and how do I win clients? So how does your sweet spot benefit other people? Let's use this example of conversion rate optimization. Conversion rate optimization is great. Mike and I are going to geek off about CRO all day long, but nobody cares unless we can articulate that conversion rate optimization equals more leads. That's one of the benefits of conversion rate optimization. More leads for we've got some lead gen websites here in Australia. A very common one is called High Pages. So if you go looking for a tradesperson to come to your house, like a plumber or an electrician, pretty much the first website that's going to come up in Google is High Pages. And they're a lead gen site. They list all of it's kind of like a Yellow Pages, but for tradies and removalists. And they basically grab the lead and then they sell the leads on to tradies. So they care about conversion rate optimization because they want more leads. Another benefit is that you might be able to lower the cost per customer. So if you're dealing with an e-commerce store, for example, and you do some conversion rate optimization, you might be able to decrease the cost per customer for that e-commerce website owner. So they're just a couple of benefits of CRO. I know one of our members in WP Elevation, his sweet spot is page speed. He's really good and really passionate about page speed, right?
Yeah.
Big shout out to Alex Jenowitz if he's listening.
Yeah.
But who cares about page speed? Well, no one cares about page speed until you tell them, well, did you know that one of the factors that affects your Google rankings is the speed in which your page loads in the browser? And once you start talking about getting found on Google, then business owners pay attention because they understand the benefit of that. But if you start the conversation with page speed, well, you're confusing them and they don't really care because it's too technical. So page speed is the feature. The benefit might be higher Google rankings, more visibility on search engines. So just thinking through how what it is you do benefits other people is a really important exercise. As a business owner, being able to communicate benefits is one of the most important things that you can do. So page 2 of the worksheet looks like this, and I've included some. We've included some instructions on this page here to kind of help get you started, and I've included the example that we talk about here. So your job at the end of this webinar, once you've worked out your sweet spot, is just to write down, okay, what benefits does my sweet spot offer other people? Yeah.
Yeah, and just sorry, why are you going on that as well? It's what the thing I when I was going through this, and I think as a lot of digital creatives and people in the web space, we're quite anxious about having these kind of conversations with customers. And this, to me, this was the bit that was a really big turning point, because all of a sudden I could see what other people connected with, what my customers connected with. Because if I talked to them about customer conversion rate optimization, their eyes would literally glaze over,
Yeah.
But as soon as I changed that and we did exercises like this and I say, well, we can actually help you get more leads and a lower customer cost, customer acquisition cost, all of a sudden they were really interested. As far as I was concerned, it was still CRO, but that's the bit that they connected with,
That's right. That's right. Because what you want, and so for those that don't know, by the way, before Mike was a coach at WP Elevation, he was actually a customer and member of WP Elevation and actually went through this whole process and knocked it out of the park. And that's how eventually he became a coach. And then eventually we flew him out to Australia to help us set up our marketing funnels. So it was kind of a nice full circle where the student starts teaching the teacher.
Yeah.
The thing is that no one cares how you do. No one cares what you do, but what they are interested in is what you're going to do for them. And when you start saying we can help you get more leads and lower your cost per acquisition, then they start saying, how do you do that?
Yeah, how do you?
And once they start saying, how do you do that, and they start asking those sort of questions, then you're having an authentic conversation with a customer, and it's much easier to convert them into a paying client.
Yeah.
So your job, just to brainstorm some benefits that your sweet spot offers other people. All right. That is step 2 of the turnkey system. Step number 3 is your ideal client. Now that you know what kind of benefits your sweet spot offers other people, your job is to simply think about, okay, who stands to benefit the most from these benefits? So let's go back to the CRO example. If we're doing conversion rate optimization and our benefits are more leads and lower cost per acquisition. Well, an unfunded startup with a brand new website and no traffic and no email list and no budget for pay-per-click advertising is probably not going to benefit a whole great deal from conversion rate optimization, because they don't have a baseline to start with. They don't know what their current conversion rate is, so it's very hard to optimize it. However, an e-commerce store that is spending, I had buddies that had an e-commerce store up until recently. They were spending, I kid you not, $25,000 a day on Facebook ads. Yeah. I'm not kidding, right? Jeez, now, conversion rate optimization to them makes a huge difference. Yeah. They get like 0.5% bump in their conversion rate, and it means tens of thousands of dollars in additional sales a month, right? So these guys have a big budget for ad spend. They've already got a list. They've got tons of traffic to their website. They've got a proven business model that's profitable. They're selling physical product in an e-commerce store. They're basically drop shipping clothing. They are the perfect client because I can just pull a few levers and actually get a huge result for them and hit a home run. Yeah. So you got to think about who your ideal client is. And the question I always like to ask is, who stands to benefit the most from working with me and benefiting from our sweet spot? And then what I do is I just run this very simple exercise, which I completely stole from a fabulous book called Duct Tape Marketing, written by a man named John Jansch. And this is his formula for building a very simple customer avatar. You can spend months building a customer avatar. I like to just get it done this afternoon, and so that we can then at least start the ball rolling. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just needs to be done. And John Jansch is all about, he's very much that philosophy as well. He's all about very practical marketing stuff for small business. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just needs to get done. So this is a very simple formula for bringing your ideal customer to life. Physical description, and I'm going to give you an example of this in a minute. Physical description, what they want, biggest problem, how they buy, plus the best channel to communicate with them. So in the non-profit example, we had an agency that served non-profits. Our ideal client was a female, and I don't know why, but the most of our clients ended up being female marketing managers in their 50s who worked for non-profits. So that's the physical description of someone, right? A female marketing manager in her 50s who works for a large non-profit. What do they want? They want to increase their database of potential donors for their campaigns. Their biggest problem is every year they get about a 30% retention. In other words, people that donated to our campaign last year, only 30% of them are going to continue to donate this year. The other 70% we're probably going to lose. So that's their problem. What they want is they want more people in the top of the funnel. How do they buy? They very rarely buy from Facebook ads. They buy from in-person, face-to-face sales calls, right? They buy from people who are really helpful, and they buy from people they trust. And the best channel to communicate with them is at live events. That's what we learned about the marketing manager. They were going to marketing conferences and digital marketing meetups, and that's the best way to have a conversation with them in person, shaking hands, building that trust. So we then put that into a little card that we had in the office, and we gave her a name. Her name was Jenny, and that was our ideal client. Yeah, and we really brought that ideal client to life. So in our example with the CRO, this is page 3 of the worksheet. The perfect ideal client here is someone who is spending money on paid traffic or devoting a lot of resources to organic traffic and not getting the results they want. So what do they want? They want better conversions because they want lower cost per acquisition, because they want more profit. Yeah. And their biggest problem is they're probably throwing a bunch of stuff against the wall to seeing what sticks, and they don't really have a clear strategy, or they don't have accountability, or they don't have the right measuring tools in place to actually measure their efforts.
And this,
go on.
I was just going to say this exercise here as well. This is the one that whenever we're talking to our customers and we talk to them about this is the one where they always think they know who their ideal client is. They always believe they've got this mental picture in their head, but writing it down, I honestly, out of all of these exercises are extremely practical. I think they're really easy to do, but this is the one that people think they don't need to do. But in my opinion, it's the one you should be writing down and getting it on paper. And also, what I find really funny is you have a choice in who your ideal client is. That's so important. It's often said that if your customers are everyone, then nobody's your customer. You have a choice. Like the characteristics that you want to work with within their business, their personality style. This is such a key part of quality lead generation and for your business. So yeah, I really implore people to print this one out and write this one down. This one's key.
There's a couple of things about this. This is one exercise that took me years to do because I thought it was naff and I thought it was baloney and I thought, no, this is just complete, hogwash. And up until doing this exercise, I was kind of all over the place like a mad woman's breakfast, to coin a phrase, that to coin an Australian colloquialism.
Australian, of course. It is, yeah.
That I really didn't know who I was serving. So my marketing efforts were all over the place and I was going to all these different events and trying everything, right? As soon as I did this exercise, and I did it begrudgingly, but as soon as I did this exercise, I got really clear about who we served. And then everything we did in our business from that point on was to serve Jenny, who was the nonprofit marketing manager. The other thing about what you just said is that you have a choice who your ideal client is. One of the other really common things we hear from WordPress consultants all the time is, I'm dealing with all these clients and they have no budget. And here's the thing, and I know it sounds harsh, but here's the thing. Just because someone started a new business and they want a new website and they don't have any money, it doesn't mean just because you know how to help them, it doesn't mean you have to help them. I know we want to help people and we've all got big hearts and we want to help small business owners, but if they don't have a budget and they can't find a budget to hire you, you're not obliged to help them. No. We're not a community service. You have to run a profitable business. That's the reality is your business has to be profitable so that you can continue to serve your customers and your clients. So Mike's absolutely right. You have a choice on who you work with. So very simple exercise, just to go back to this framework from John Jantz, very simple exercise to use this framework here to fill in this sheet here and just write 1 or 2 sentences about who you think your ideal client is. Again, in the CRO example, in a perfect world, they would have an existing email list to promote to, and they should be well established with a proven track record of providing good products and services to happy customers. If you talk to this business owner about getting them a better return on investment from their PPC efforts, you'll have them eating out of the palm of your hands. We're not talking about CRO. We're talking about, hey, you're spending 10 grand a day on Facebook ads and Google ads. I think I can help you get a better return on that money. Now we're having a meaningful conversation that makes sense to them. Okay, step number 4. This is where things get interesting because this is where most people bail, right? And most people bail because they feel overwhelmed. And we're gonna give you a very, very simple process here to remove the overwhelm. Step number 4 is what we call your flagship piece. And this is a flagship piece of really super helpful content that is designed to attract your ideal client to you and to see you as the expert in your field so that they hire you. And I know you've heard all this before from many, many people who have been talking about digital marketing, that you've got to become an authority, you've got to become an influencer, and you've got to create all this content. Well, it's really simple to create a flagship piece of content. And we've put together a part of this worksheet that's going to help you do this. And let me give you a very, very real example. When we launched WP Elevation, it actually came out of a presentation that I did at WordCamp Melbourne in 2013. And the presentation was called 101 Ways to Elevate Yourself and Demand Higher Fees. And it was literally a presentation of 101 practical ideas to help WordPress freelancers improve their business and be seen as consultants and demand higher fees. Because the conversation I was having back then with a lot of WordPress consultants was, I can't get paid more than $1,500 to build a website. And I'm like, well, you can, you're just talking to the wrong clients, right? And so if you want to reposition yourself as a consultant, here are some ideas. Use a basic project management system and invite your client in to show them that you've actually got your act together, right? Schedule, regular weekly or bi-weekly meeting status updates to keep your client keep your client up to date with the project. One of the failure metrics we have in our business is that if a client calls us or emails us to get an update on the project, we've failed. We should be more proactive than that. There's a whole litany of things that you can do to improve your offering and improve your positioning. And that became our flagship piece of content for 2 years. We did no other content marketing except that for 2 years, right? So how do you develop a flagship piece of content without being overwhelmed? Well, really simply, you teach what you already know. And here's where this really adds value to your business. The reason that you want to teach what you already know is really threefold. One, you want to document what you already know so that you don't forget. Right? And so that when your business grows and you bring on other people to help you, if that's what you want to do, then you've got some documentation to say, hey, if we're doing conversion rate optimization, one of the first things we're going to do is have a look at the Google Analytics account and make sure their goal conversions are set up. And here's how we do that, right? Okay, well, there's one idea that we've got. There's one thing that we already know that we can teach, yeah? The other thing about teaching what you already know is that you then get better at what you do, because if you think you know something, start teaching it, and it forces you to get better at it, and it forces you to fill in all the little gaps in your knowledge. And we all have gaps in our knowledge. That's perfectly normal, but teaching what you know forces you to fill in the gaps. Yeah.
And this is, so I was just going to say really quick, this is something as well that like your competition in the local area, if you're worried about the fact that you have competition, this is the thing that they're not doing. This is the one killer tactic that they are not doing for a variety of reasons. But yeah, sorry, go ahead. You were going to say about
predominantly because it takes time and a little bit of work, right? You got to always sleep up and do some work. But the third thing that this does is it positions you as an expert without you having to say, I'm an expert.
Yeah.
Right. It actually removes all the neediness from the sales process.
Yeah.
It brings people to you to say, well, I need to hire you to do this because you are clearly the expert at it, because I've been reading your blog, I've been watching your videos, I've been listening to your podcast, you publish all this great stuff, you clearly know what you're doing, I just need to hire you. Yeah. And they approach you. And when someone approaches you to hire you, it's much easier to demand the fees that you want to get paid, and to and I say that, respectfully, to actually say, well, this is how we work, this is the process we follow, and this is the fees that we charge.
Yeah.
And if someone then starts to negotiate with you on the process, or they want to micromanage you, or they want to negotiate on the fees, you can easily remind them, hey, dude, you called me, remember?
Yeah.
Right? I didn't call you. You called me. So if they call you, you hold the power in that relationship. Now, the other thing about teaching what you know, and I was listening to Talkback Radio the other day, and I heard this fantastic phrase. We've just launched a women's football league here in Australia. In Australia, we have a sport called the AFL, the Australian Rules Football, and it's a weird game. I mean, we are a nation of convicts, by the way, so it's the kind of game that could only grow out of a nation of convicts. Yeah. It's a weird game. If you go and look at it on YouTube and try and understand the rules. But anyway, women's sport in Australia has always kind of been really underrepresented and not very well covered in the media, and not very well, supported by sponsors, and they've just launched the women's football league here in Australia. A very, very short season of about 8 to 10 games, and it's been all over the television. They've had record attendances. Sponsors are climbing all over themselves to get on board, and it's been an absolute hit. And I think it's just because football is such a unique game that Australians are absolutely mental about football. And and it's quite a physical game. So it's not like netball where it's non-contact. I mean, these girls are going in hard and absolutely beating the heck out of each other with physical contact, not throwing punches or anything, but really, it's a really physical game. So it's kind of a spectacle. Anyway, there's a local reporter who's been writing in the newspaper for the last 3 or 4 years about all of these amateur female football players, and she's been kind of picking who the superstars are going to be. And I heard on the radio she's just been hired as by the Australian Football League here as the draft specialist. The head of the draft, and the draft here is where you find amateur footballers and you bring them up into the professional league. So she is now in charge of drafting these younger amateur footballers and getting them to play professional football. And the presenter on radio said she's carved out a reputation for herself as an expert over the last few years by writing all these articles in the local paper.
Yeah.
And I thought, wow, what a great way of putting it. You publish a blog on your blog, you publish a post on your blog about, optimizing conversion rates for an e-commerce store. You do that enough and you will carve out a reputation for yourself as an expert in your field. Yeah. Yeah. If you look at Yoast, I mean, Yoast is the SEO expert because he's been publishing about SEO for 10 years.
The best example I've seen of this is a company called Sensity, which basically sells LED lights. And they used to talk about this thing called the sensory light network, which is basically to say that you can do some incredible things with LEDs if you just put a few sensors in it. And they were talking about it for years, and they knew that that's what they did, and their customers were relatively interested. But as soon as the two things that happened, first of all, the Boston bombings, and then a lighting show at Boston at the same time. And all of a sudden people were looking for, was there a way for us to predict this using simple, cheap technology? And sure enough, these guys at Sensity, look them up, by the way, because they were fascinating. Only a few guys. And all of a sudden, they were the only guys who were talking about it. They were the experts because that's what they had been talking about. And kind of content writing and this flagship piece, to me, is the equivalent of writing that book that all of a sudden positions you as the expert. This is the piece of content where people go, oh, they were really lucky to have come across that. Luck had nothing to do with it. They were willing to put in the time, create the content, talk about what they were good at. And all of a sudden, you know, that's what people wanted to know about, you know, but they already had the pieces there. Whereas other people are racing to try and catch up to write those pieces, you know. So we see it time and time again across multiple industries, and our industry is no different, you know.
So the most valuable thing you can do right now, I'm curious, we'll have this chat offline about how LED lights could predict the Boston bombings.
It's amazing. We'll talk about it later. It's amazing.
The most valuable thing you can do right now for your business is to produce what we call your flagship piece of educational content. Your job is to carve out a reputation as the go-to person for conversion rate optimization for large nonprofits in Chicago, for example. Now, I know this seems overwhelming, so the easy version is just document everything you already know, and this worksheet here just allows you to brainstorm your own list. Just bullet point it, okay? You don't need to write a 2,000-word blog post. You can eventually if that's what you want to do, and it's probably a good idea, but right now, all you need to do is bullet point everything you already know about your sweet spot. What do you know about conversion rate optimization? What do you know about email marketing open rates? What do you know about Beaver Builder? What do you know about hosting? What do you know about security in WordPress? Just brainstorm everything you know, just bullet point. And then in a perfect world, once you've bullet pointed that list and you can't think of anything else, you just go back to each bullet point and you write one sentence for each bullet point. Yeah. Now, you'd be surprised. You'll end up with 43 or 37 or 108 things that you know about this particular topic. Yeah. You go back over the next few days, you write a sentence for each one of those bullet points. Look at that. You've now got a presentation that you can do at a live event. You've now got a pretty substantial blog post you can write. You might have 43 blog posts that you can develop over the next few years or the next few months. The 101 ways to elevate yourself, by the way, that ended up becoming one presentation, 101 videos on YouTube, 101 blog posts, and 101 audio episodes of a podcast. And all it was one presentation that we cut up into 101 different pieces of different topics. And then we had the transcriptions and the audio files syndicated out as different formats of content. So all you need to do is brainstorm everything you already know. It's really easy to get started. Now, this is where things start getting a little cool for me, is in terms of interesting and fun. The truth is that at some point you're going to have to get out of the building. And when I say get out of the building, I mean, you're going to have to reach out to other people and introduce yourself and start spreading the message. You can just publish the stuff on the interwebs and hope for the best, or you can, if you want to accelerate your results and tip some fuel on the fire, you can reach out to other people, and we'll talk about that in a moment, and start sharing your message with them. If you know who your ideal client is, it's not too difficult to find out how to get in front of them. And I'll talk about that in a moment. But before you want to reach out, you need to develop what I call your pitch. And your pitch, and this really comes from my background in the film industry, is when you're pitching ideas for films, you end up with what's called a treatment. And a treatment is like maybe a 15 to 30 page kind of short story on what the movie's going to be about. There's no dialogue. There's no real character development. It's just a loose idea of, what the film's going to be about. And you pitch that to producers. So your pitch is a one-sentence paragraph that summarizes your flagship piece. And I'm going to give you an example here. And I bet you when you read this example, most of you are going to groan or cringe because you have seen so many of these headlines over the last 5 years that I bet you are all sick to death of them. And it looks something like this: 43 actionable things any e-commerce store owner can do in the next 30 days to increase sales from their website. Now, I know that looks really spammy and really clickbaitish, right? But here's the thing. The reason we are all so sick of these headlines is because we see them all the time. And why do you think we see them all the time? Because they work.
Yeah, I'm racking my brain, mate. I can't.
people wouldn't, I mean, big publishing companies and big assets wouldn't continue to use these types of headlines if they didn't work. So if you are a conversion rate optimization specialist and you actually bullet point 43 ideas to help e-commerce store owners increase conversion rates, then this is the pitch for your educational piece. Hey, I've got 43 actionable things any e-commerce store owner can do in the next 30 days to increase sales from their website. And what you want is you want someone to respond to that by saying, awesome, what are the 43 actionable things? I'd love to know. Okay. So once you've bullet pointed, and this is all going to make sense very soon. Once you've bullet pointed your ideas, your job then is to write your pitch. You just write a 1 to 2 sentence paragraph that summarizes your flagship piece. And by now it should be really easy because your post includes however many bullet points you've got, right, that help any ideal client that we've identified achieve the benefit that we've identified our sweet spot provides. So this pitch, I mean, if you've done the work up until here, this pitch is going to write itself, right? 17 simple things any marketing manager at a large nonprofit can do to increase their donor database because that's my sweet spot and that's what I do. Yeah.
And I'll tell you what's interesting about this as well is that the pitch applies to, you know, once we start getting into things like content, presenting, speaking, products, courses, email marketing, et cetera, this pitch, you use this same formula over and over and over. It just writes itself every single time, you know, and all of a sudden you're creating something without having to kind of go back to the beginning, you know?
Yeah, and the mistake that we see people making all the time is they start here. They start with the pitch, right?
Yeah.
And it takes them months to figure out what their pitch is because they don't know who their ideal client is. They don't know who their ideal client is because they don't know what benefits they offer because they don't know their sweet spot. And so if you just take this process from the start, if after this webinar, if you get off this webinar, this should take you no longer than half an hour to get to here, to get to this pitch, no longer than half an hour to get to this pitch. And you've got a great pitch, right? You've got a fantastic pitch for a super helpful piece of content that is very specific and helps a very specific niche with very specific benefits. And again, sorry to name drop, but I did have the great fortune of interviewing Seth Godin on the podcast last year. And he mentioned his friend Zig Ziglar, who once said, it is better to be a meaningful specific than a wandering generality. Yeah. So you don't want to be a generalist. You want to be a specialist. You want to specialize in something because specialists get paid specialist fees because they've taken the time to specialize. Okay. So once you've got your pitch, now the rubber really starts to hit the road where you now go and build your partners. You reach out and you say, okay, my ideal client is an e-commerce, and this is a real example. This is hilarious. My example is Mike and I are conversion rate optimization specialists, and we've started an agency called CRO Limited, right? Because we couldn't think of anything fancy. And we are going to target e-commerce store owners in Chicago because I live in Australia and he lives in Devon, so it makes sense to target Chicago. And we're going to target large e-commerce stores who are spending good money on ads every month, and we're going to help them get a better return on their investment, right? So who do we partner with? How can we get in front of a whole bunch of e-commerce store owners? Actually, let's use Australia as an example because I did some research and found this great resource. So how do we get in front of a whole bunch of e-commerce store owners? Well, we're not going to pick up the phone book or get onto Google and start calling e-commerce stores or start emailing e-commerce stores and telling them, you know, we get emails all the time from SEO companies saying, oh, I found your website and I'm sure I can get you better results on Google. Can you pay me $5,000 to do an audit on your website? You're like, that's going to happen. So please don't do that. If you're doing that now, please stop doing that because you're just annoying people. What you want to do is you want to find out who represents a large group of my ideal client. So who currently has the attention of a large number of my ideal client? And in this case, it's e-commerce store owners, right? So let me give you a very clear example of how WP Elevation has done this, and then I'm going to come back to the online e-commerce example. We partner with BidSketch, GoDaddy, Manage WP, three of our big partners. BidSketch, we put together a co-branded ebook called 16 Simple Marketing Tactics to help you get new clients. GoDaddy, we partner with them and we run training webinars just like we're running right now. And we have worksheets and a blog post that go along with it. Manage WP, we've partnered with them in the past to run training webinars about website care plans, and Manage WP also have the video user manuals plug-in on their perks page. So these are partnerships that we've actively nurtured over the years, and these are just some examples of how we do it at WP Elevation. But in preparing for this webinar, I did about 10 seconds of research on good old Google, and I found this organization called the National Online Retailers Association. Yep. And their website is www.nora.org.au. And what do you think they do? Well, they connect retailers, service providers, markets, and customers to accelerate learning and business growth. They basically represent anyone who is in the online retail space. They're an organization of online retailers, right? And have a look at their homepage. Their homepage, the big call to action banner says, "Your staff, the key to bridging the online and offline gap." A Nora/Fluent Retail webinar. Now, Fluent Retail are another organization. I have no idea what they sell, but they're targeting online retailers. They have partnered with Nora here to present a training webinar. Very similar to the way that WP Elevation and GoDaddy have partnered here to run a training webinar for a similar audience that we serve. Yeah, and this is what Fluent Retail and Nora are doing here. Now, if Mike and I are going after e-commerce store owners in Australia, who do you think we'd be approaching to partner with? We'd be approaching to partner Nora, and we'd be running a free training webinar to help e-commerce store owners get better return on ad spend. And that would be, that's a complete no-brainer. How many leads do you think we would get from running that webinar? Yeah, dozens, if not hundreds. Okay, so your job is to get out of the building. It's time for outreach. When I say get out of the building, I mean you have to reach out to people who you think represent your ideal client and send them your pitch. You simply say, "Hey, hi Paul, my name's Troy. Mike, my partner, and I are specialists in helping e-commerce store owners get a better return on their ad spend. In fact, we've produced a flagship piece of educational content called 43 Actionable Things Any E-Commerce Store Owner Can Do in the Next 30 Days to Get a Better Return on Investment. Would you be interested in sharing this content with your audience?" Simple. That's it. I mean, it's really complicated, isn't it? And it's,
and as well, it's basically, you look at, okay, where are people congregating? And even 10 years ago, this was so much harder because you were limited by geography. But now the internet has been able to set up communities so easily that if I wanted to target, in fact, I've done this with a colleague of mine who's starting to develop a board game. And so we just Googled board game developers forum, and there was just hundreds of communities of people who did the exact same thing that we were looking for, and it was right there at our fingertips.
Yep. Meetup.com is also a really good place. If you want to find local pockets, and they might be small numbers, but they're really engaged members, and you go along and, introduce yourself in a meetup and you get great market research. All right. So your job is just to make a list of potential partners you can reach out to. And once you've got that list of potential partners, you just send them your pitch. Not everyone's going to say yes, but eventually you'll find one of those partners who is interested in putting your content in front of their audience.
Yep.
Okay, your next step, I think, yes, hang on. What have we got here? Yes, your next step is lead generation. So this is where the rubber really starts to hit the road. How do you then, okay, this is all fantastic and it all makes sense and it's all very exciting, but how do we then actually get leads? Well, very simply, you produce a piece of co-branded, it's called a co-branded content upgrade. Now, in our example here with this webinar with GoDaddy, it's very simple. It's a training webinar. There's a blog post that we're publishing on the GoDaddy Garage, which is basically a written version of this webinar, and the worksheet and the webinar replay will be the co-branded content upgrade. So you can opt in to get the worksheet and the webinar replay, and that's a co-branded content upgrade. When we partnered with BidSketch, they put out an ebook called 16 Simple Marketing Tactics to Help Get More Clients. And I ran a training webinar so that if you opted in for the ebook, the first 500 people that opted in for the ebook then also got a bonus training webinar. So that's a co-branded content upgrade. And what it's designed to do is it's designed to put you in front of your partner's audience, and it's designed to help your partner add more value to their audience without the headache of having to create a whole bunch of content because you've already done that work for them. So any organization that has an audience, whether it's, in Australia, we have a thing called CPA, Certified Practicing Accountants Association. They have thousands of members all over Australia who are all accounting firms. They put out a monthly magazine and an e-newsletter and a blog, and they run live events, and they're always looking for specialists to come along and help educate their accounting members, because that's how they get their membership fees every year. They get their membership fees because the accountants want to belong to CPA because they get professional development and they get all this advice from third-party experts. So you want to carve out a reputation as one of those third-party experts that these industry associations can bring in and help educate their audience. Cool. So the thing that Mike and I have learned over the years, and Mike's really been instrumental in kind of helping me think through this, is people will sign up and will opt in for basically a faster result or an automated result. So, you know, for example, if you write a blog post on conversion rate optimization for e-commerce store owners, and there's 43 actionable things they can do, that's going to be that's going to be one of those blog posts that probably gets the too long didn't read meme attached to it, because it's going to be quite in depth. If during that blog post you have a button that says, hey, download the checklist and just, you know, get the TLDR version of this that you can start actioning in the next 5 minutes, people will opt in for that because it's a faster result. Or if you can promise some kind of way of automating it, if there's some hack or there's some tool that they can use to help automate it, that's what people will opt in for, and that's what people will pay for. And in fact, if you think about what you do as a WordPress consultant, the truth is that me as a business owner, I could spend the next 3 years learning how to build my own website in WordPress. In fact, that's what I did. I learned how to build websites in WordPress, and I'm still learning how to continue to build websites in WordPress, right? It's taken me years to get where I am now. Now, the accountant down the road can Google around and get YouTube and get the WP 101 plugin and come over to video user manuals and learn a whole bunch of stuff about WordPress and actually learn to build their own website, and it might take them 3 years to get there. But they pay you to do it for them because it's faster and they don't have to worry about it, right? So they're paying for speed and automation, essentially. So if there's some kind of content upgrade that offers speed and automation, that's what people will sign up for. And what you're doing here is you're getting people to raise their hand and say, hey, I'm interested in this. I want to know more. And there's just one little distinction I want to make about this. This is called lead generation, right? When somebody raises their hand and says, hey, I want more information from you because I think you know what you're talking about and I trust you, do not underestimate the significance of this gesture. Right? Treat that email address like gold. I treat people who sign up to our email list, I treat them like family. You know, I want to have a conversation with them. I want to understand what their pain points are. I want to become the most helpful person that they know on the internet. And this is how you carve out a reputation as an expert in your field, by building an audience of people who point to you and say, Mike Killen is the marketing funnels guy. If you've got a WordPress website and you need a marketing funnel, he's the guy to talk to. If you're a nonprofit and you need more donors, go and speak to Troy Dean because he's the expert in that field. You want other people referencing you and other people talking about you as the expert in your field. All right, so I think this might be the final page of the worksheet there, is to get them to raise their hand and write down some ideas here for your content upgrade. What is it that you can offer? Some kind of checklist or download that you can offer to get people to join your email list. All right, now, here's where we do something completely radical, which is the complete opposite of what everyone else is going to teach you in this space.
Other people do not teach this step. They don't like that we teach this step as well.
And you know what? It's kind of coming full circle because all of the automation tools and all of the autoresponders that are available and all the fancy pants stuff you can do is all very cool and very excellent. But the reality is, when people sign up to an email list, they expect to be spoken to by a robot. Right? People do not expect to be spoken to by a human being when they join an email list in 2017. They expect robots. So I have been following a guy named Dean Jackson, who's got a fantastic podcast called I Love Marketing. And he's been talking a lot about this lately. And this is something that I've been experimenting with as well over the last couple of years. And in fact, one of the biggest success strategies we've had at WP Elevation is me literally having a conversation with people in my inbox, just having a good old fashioned conversation. I use dictation software because I'm a terrible typist. So I literally put on my headset and my dictation software, and I respond to my emails and I have a conversation with people. I don't use automation. I don't use robots. I don't use an autoresponder. The first email that people get when they sign up for the content upgrade is the actual content upgrade that we promise them. That's automated. The second email they get is automated. The second email they get says, hey, hope you enjoyed the thing you got the other day. Please hit reply and give me your feedback and tell me what your biggest problem is that you've got in your business right now. That's automated. And it goes out about 2 or 3 days after they get the content upgrade, right? If they hit reply, that email that they send comes to my inbox. Yep. And that's when I start having a conversation with people in my inbox. It's no longer automated. So I have a real conversation in your inbox, and people quite often email me a few days later and say, in fact, Kath Hughes, who's one of our coaches here at WP Elevation, she started out as a customer of WP Elevation. And she used to send me emails. When she first started following me online, she used to send me emails that said, Dear Automated Troy.
Yeah.
Because she was convinced it was still all automated, right? Yeah. And I would send her emails back saying, Dear Automated Kath, this is actually not automated. You are speaking to a real person. Eventually I rang her on Skype and I said, Kath, I'm Troy. How you doing? Yeah. And now, of course, we're great mates. So you want to have a real conversation in your inbox, ask lots of questions, and be as super helpful as you can. And then at some point, a very small percentage of people are going to come back to you with what we call their life story. They're going to come back and they're going to say, well, Mike, this is the problem I've got. I'm spending $10,000 a month on AdWords, and I've got this guy running my Facebook thing, and I'm not sure that he knows what he's doing, and I don't even know if the whole thing's working, and it's a real mess, and I'm really looking for some help, And then there's one magic question that you can ask, which is our really super complicated, fancy pants sales process.
So complicated.
It's really easy. Yeah. It's just, would you like my help? Yeah. Would you like my help? It's the easiest question you can ask. When someone has said, I need, and again, only a small percentage of people who sign up for the content upgrade and engage with your flagship piece of content or see you speak at an event or read your blog, only a small percent are eventually going to come to you and say, I need someone to help me, fix this. And you say, would you like my help? And when they say yes, then you onboard them as a client. Yep. You set them up with an account. You tell them how you work. You tell them what your fee structure is. It's very simple. It's a very uncomplicated sales process. If they don't, no one expects you to help them for free. Would you like my help? Yes, thank you. Okay, well, let's get started and, we'll just help you and we won't send you an invoice. No one expects you to help them for free. If someone says they would like your help, what they're actually saying is, can I please hire you to help me get a result? Yep. Now, let's deal with a couple of things. So that step 9, that is the last step in this turnkey system. Step 9 is that one magic question, would you like my help? Now, I'm going to talk a little bit about what you do when they say yes in a moment, but they're the 9 steps of the turnkey system. And when they say, yes, I would like my help, then we onboard them. And I'll talk a little bit about that in a moment. But before we get there, I just want to talk about FOMO. And this really is something Mike and I talked a lot about before this webinar, because the biggest fear that people have with choosing their sweet spot and choosing their ideal client is, that they're going to miss out on all of this other work. They're going to miss out on all of these other clients. Yeah. And the reality is, and I think Mike mentioned it before, is that if you try and serve everyone, you end up serving no one, because you end up communicating and marketing in a way, and your messaging becomes so broad because you're trying to appeal to everyone that you just end up adding to the noise on the internet. Yep. And what people respond to opinionated content that is backed up with data or results or proof. Yeah. Social proof, testimonials, case studies, real data, screenshots, third-party data that's opinionated. Opinionated content with proof and data is what people respond to. So go on. Yeah.
Basically, the way I got started and it kicked off for me is because I basically wrote a post called "Stop Talking About the Fold." So stop talking about the fold for everything, for emails, newsletters, SEO, absolutely everything about it. And I said it's a joke. We've got responsive design, etc., etc., etc. Yeah. And a car dealership saw it and basically emailed me and said, "Is this true?" And it was because I was opinionated that if everyone else was writing about the fold, but if you Googled at the time, the fold doesn't matter or something along those lines, or does the fold matter? My post was top because it said, no, it doesn't. And nobody else was willing to say that. Everyone else was willing to go the same way. But if you genuinely believe that there's something that your customers should be doing differently, that is the thing that is going to separate you from everybody else.
And for those that don't know, the fold is an old newspaper term where you buy the newspaper, you fold it in half and you read. And so the idea with web is that everything important needs to be above the fold. Well, of course, screen sizes are so different nowadays that the fold is invisible. The fold doesn't exist. So if you don't know what the fold is, that's what Mike's talking about there. And so the truth is you can't serve everyone. Don't try. Serve your ideal client. Work out your sweet spot. Identify who benefits the most from your work. Write out who your ideal client is, and then go about serving your ideal client better than everyone else. Because remember, your clients are not hiding from you. They're waiting to be served. And as Mike very wisely pointed out to me before this webinar last week when we were chatting about this, he said, the thing is, you only need one client to bite from this flagship piece of content. And then you've proven that this message resonates with the market, right? And then you just replicate it by going and finding other partners to partner with. And you just put more people in, you put your content in front of more people and you get more bites. So you don't need 12 or 15 or 20 clients to bite in the first month. You just need one to prove that your messaging and your communication is resonating with your ideal client. And you will learn so much about yourself, about what you do, about your skill set, about your sweet spot, about your market, and about communication by going through this process that you'll become a better communicator and a better marketer. And I'm here to say it, I don't care what business you're in, if you're not marketing and you're not communicating the benefits of what you do to your customers, you're going to be left behind. So the very act of going through this process is going to make you a better communicator. Okay, next steps really are to just download. I want to talk about onboarding a new client when they say, yes, they do want your help. I want to talk about that in a moment, and then I want to get to some questions. And I know we're running a little bit over time, so I'm conscious of that. But the next steps really are to download the worksheet that you've been given, print it out, pick up a pen, write in your notes. And if you've made some handwritten notes during this call, please take a photo, tweet it out, and mention @WP Elevation. And we would be very appreciative of the love. All right, hey, let's do some Q&A. If you want to jump on the line and have a chat with us. All right, so, hey, guys, I hope you've enjoyed this. Mike, I've enjoyed having you here.
Yeah, I've had a great time, mate. Yeah, me too.
Andy and the guys from GoDaddy, thank you so much for having us on this this webinar. I hope this has been helpful for you guys. Please download the worksheet that you will have got on email. Make sure you fill it in. This is all academic unless you actually do something with it. So as I said in the promo video for this, we don't want to give you information. We actually want to help you take action. And the best way to do that is to download the worksheet, fill it in, start doing it, and then hit us up. Send us a tweet to GoDaddy or @WP Elevation and let us know how it's working out for you and let us know what you want to learn next. I've had a great time. I hope you have too, Mike. It's very late where you are. Thank you for staying up with us. We look forward to seeing you again on another one of these calls. Hey, thank you very much for having us. Over and out. I can't actually end the call. I think Andy's going to have to do that. So
cheers, everyone.
Until next time, go elevate. Check out WPElevation.com and GoDaddy.com. Cheers.
Bye, guys.